I want to feel good, and if society shuts its doors to me, then where do I turn? And that is why some decide to return to war.
The government is proud of the new stability and believes that it's programs like these that will end the conflict. Its aim is to stabilize the country to a point where the international humanitarian presence is not needed. It regards their continued presence as a label of being a failed state.
The Colombian process is a process which is 95% financed by the Colombian government. It's designed by Colombian authorities. It's implemented by Colombian authorities and Colombian society at large. So while there is an important role that the international community is playing, this is almost 100% a Colombian process. That's good. Why? Because it's a Colombian solution to a Colombian problem. When international cooperation and international donors work with us, they work with us. They don't tell us what we have to do.
I think that there is a general pattern, first of all, and that general pattern is that the human rights agenda has been losing ground to the national sovereignty agenda. And so many countries consider, in different situations, that from the point of view of protection of their national sovereignty and their national interest, the humanitarian international community should not be allowed to be there, to witness what is happening.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC, there are further parallels. A long-running conflict, a distrusted army, and an illegal trade in resources. But there is extreme confusion over who is fighting who, and for what reason. This is a conflict where civilians have suffered on a scale unimaginable even by Colombian or Afghan standards. The conflict in the eastern part of the DRC, bordering Uganda and Rwanda, started in the mid-1990s. No one really knows how many have died, but it could be as many as 5 million, rendering it the deadliest conflict since the Second World War. Between January and October 2010, the UN has listed 109 attacks against humanitarian workers in eastern Congo. The conflict began with the Rwandan genocide in 1994, when nearly 1 million Rwandan Hutus crossed to eastern Congo, fleeing revenge from the new Tutsi government. Among them were the Hutu army officers and the militias called the Interahamwe, who had led the genocide of 800,000. The Hutus established a rebel group, the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, FDLR, and entered the fray along with Congolese militias, the army and foreign troops in a battle over territory and mineral resources. The country's colossal riches, gold, diamonds, coltan and tin ore, fuel the fighting.
It has been looted several times. It's still looted by many interests that operate. One of the things that keep all these militias and groups operating is the fact that they can exploit natural resources and they can pay for their own wars.
Despite the presence of the biggest United Nations peacekeeping force in the world, MONUSCO, the people of eastern Congo suffer appalling human rights abuses. Internal displacement, killing, mass rape, looting and kidnapping are a fact of life, while the aid agencies are a target for the armed groups who act more like bandits than rebel fighters with a cause.
Nous voyons un sursaut d'insécurité. Des groupes armés congolaises qui n'ont résiduel.
We're witnessing a surge of insecurity. The odd Congolese armed groups who haven't integrated into the army have continued to operate and are now starting to form tactical alliances for lucrative activities. I would say it's more banditry than anything else.
Et donc c'est plutôt, je dirais, du banditisme.
According to the UN, there are currently 1.7 million refugees or internally displaced people in eastern Congo. A third are in North Kivu, a province of almost 6 million people and one of the hardest hit. UNHCR runs 42 camps. This is the UN compound in Kichanga, a small town in North Kivu. Giovanna Zanelli and Jerome Merlin are going to visit Kikuku, a small camp some 50 kilometers away. In line with UN security measures, the first part of the journey must be made in convoy, the second under military escort with UN peacekeepers.
Last night, here, around 8 p.m, there was an attack. A commercial truck was attacked by armed men. We don't really know who, and there were 3 seriously wounded. It happens frequently, and that is why we never travel after 6 p.m, after nightfall.
Security is not the only problem. Roads and infrastructure have been damaged. An hour in, the first hurdle, a collapsed bridge. But the convoy is undeterred, and with a few planks strategically placed, the 4x4s resume their journey a mere 15 minutes later.
These are frequent hazards. This morning we were lucky, if you can call it that. It was a commercial truck, and as they are heavily loaded, they damage the roads, especially the little bridges. And they can do even more damage to the bridges, the crossing points, and we can be blocked.
After 40 kilometers and another 2.5 hours, the UNHCR convoy finally arrives in Nyanzale. From here, they'll be escorted to the Kikuku camp by a UN peacekeeping contingent from India. They go at a snail's pace with the military escort. It takes over half an hour to go the last 10 kilometers. Kikuku was established in January 2007 and is home to 1,900 refugees. Damian Alvarez works for Première Urgence, an NGO that runs the camp for UNHCR. He's been in Eastern Congo for only 6 months, but experienced the full force of the violence days after arriving.
Le troisième jour, je suis arrivé, il y a eu des tirs pendant à peu près 30 minutes.
On the third day of my arrival, there were shots for about 30 minutes where I stay in Katwe, which is 20 minutes away from here. It's a small village where there were 3 NGOs, and it was my christening. It was the first time for me. Before I was in Cameroon, and there wasn't all this.
Everybody in this camp has fled the savagery of one armed group or another. The inhabitants of Kikuku came hoping to find security. But 51-year-old Aimable Nzabandora, who arrived in 2007, says the camp is attacked by the FDLR, the Hutu armed group, almost daily.
It's to rob and loot. If during the day they see that you have new pots and that you are nicely dressed, the bandits will appear during the night and snatch brutally the coveted goods. Those who resist are slaughtered in cold blood. We thought that the UN peacekeepers would bring us peace and would protect us from the bandits, but it's not the case.
The peacekeepers of the UN stabilization mission in the DRC, MONUSCO, have also been criticized for their inability to stop the mass rapes that took place in July 2010 in North Kivu.
We're here to support the efforts of the government to stabilize the country. We cannot be all the time everywhere. We're talking of physical protection. So the proportion of our forces, our presence here, is really not proportional with the population that we're supposed to protect. It's very clear.
According to aid workers and locals, the Congolese army, the FARDC, is no better than the other armed groups. Leon Barianga Rutuye, the president of the Provincial Assembly of North Kivu, says it's not surprising when the attempt to make peace involved integrating former militiamen into the army. Some had neither education nor formal military training.
You take someone who's never been to a military academy and he is a commander. What would he command? He got himself a colonel's stripes because he was in the bush, when in fact he doesn't even know how to read or write his name. What good work do you expect him to do? So, in this army, in the FARDC, there are black sheep. There are soldiers who are in the military simply because yesterday they were an armed group. And in the name of peace, we said everyone can integrate into the army.